Okay. Ledodi of the Rebbe Chelik Daled. We're finishing up the Maamar Peshin Samaches. Okay, so the last thing the Rebbe is explaining over here is that when the king comes to, especially to the Jews that are Midbar, because it's a lower level of Kedusha, that shows even the greater reason of creation that the king lowers himself to... First of all, there's no Chelik Ches. It only goes through Vav. Shin Samaches, the page. Anyway, so Rabbi explains that especially this, because the whole thing is the Yud Gimel Midas Rachma become greater because the whole purpose of creation was for the Jews. So when the Yud Gimel Midas Rachma come down to be able to serve the Jew, to waken up the essence of the Jew in Elul when the king comes into the field, so then Lepoil, that causes that the Yud Gimel Midas Rachma accomplishing the mission, why they existing, because the whole world, everything was created for the Jews, so Yud Gimel Midas Rachma was created for the Jews. So when Yud Gimel Midas Rachma awakens the Jew to do what he needs to do, so then the purpose of Yud Gimel Midas Rachma was accomplished. But the Rebbe says in the order before, what's interesting is, it shows that, so to speak, that Hashem comes down into the field. He's willing to come down into the field, meaning taking off his crown, taking off the royal garments that he wears in the palace, and the king is willing to come down into the Soda, or technically really eventually lower in the Midbar. Why? To be able to help out the Jews. So that itself stimulates within the Jew, when the Jew thinks, look at this, the king left the palace to come to me, to wake me up, to accomplish something. So therefore the longing to the king becomes stronger. And then, so he says, based on that, the lower the descent of the king is in the Sadeh, meaning even to level of Midbar, so then it shows even a greater accomplishment of the Yud Gimel Midas Rachma. So he says, what?
Is considered a field, or we have to go actually out in the field, like a desert?
No, this is a city.
We have to go out in the desert.
There is no physical king in the city. Okay? There's no physical king. The Melech coming out into the sun is a spiritual level. All of us find ourselves, unless if you're a tzaddik, who finds himself in the city in the presence of the king in the palace, so all of us peasant Jews, so to speak, we're all in the fields, spiritually. And that's the level where there's no civilization of humans, there is no Kedusha, and we have to go out of ourselves, out of our own spiritual soda, to meet the king, who is out there spiritually for us to be able to connect to him. Okay. So it says, you could be in Buckingham Palace and you're in a midbar. Okay, so he said, it says like this. Because the question now that I've asked the whole thing. What?
I have no parking. Up there you don't have to. Where?
Just after the alley, this part. He says that Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li is all Elul, yet there's Dodi Li in the Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li. So he says, Shevedodi Li Sheberosh Tevis Elul Koi Beikar Al Gilu Yud Gimel Midas Rachma Shebe Elul. The Dodi Li, which is the revelation from above, that is primarily, what is he speaking about? Because L'chayra Elul is not Dodi Li. So he says the Dodi Li of Elul is the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim, and that's why he says afterwards Dodi Li. After Ani Ledodi, even though the Gilui of Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim Shebe Elul, the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim of Elul, isn't as seen as Kerechal Aveda Ani Ledodi. Even though Deidi Li, even though Deidi Li is l'chayda because of Anila Deidi, I'm sorry, the Deidi Li, the revelation Yigim Midas Rachman causes the Anila Deidi. Remember, the Rebbe explained until now, Deidi Li is the revelation Yigim Midas Rachman. That revelation Yigim Midas Rachman awakens the Jew to come to the king. Right? The fact that the king is coming to the field and leaving the palace and the royal garments and everything, like we just explained what the Rebbe writes. So then what happens is, the Deidi Li causes the Anila Deidi to happen. So l'chayra again, then Deidi Li should be before Anila Deidi. So he says, Ki b'pnim yisonyonim, in the real level, Anila Deidi Aveda Sa'odam is l'mayla mi-Deidi Li v'gili m'mayla. The truth of the matter is, Aveda of the Jew, this is where we left off in the middle yesterday. The Aveda of the Jew, what the Jew accomplishes, is infinitely greater than the revelation that comes from above. Even the revelation that comes after the Anila Deidi, or the revelation from above that causes the Anila Deidi, but what's first, meaning what's primary? The Aveda of the Jew, Anila Deidi. So maybe in the order, Deidi Li stimulate the Yud Gimel Midas Rachman that he says is Deidi Li, but that stimulates Anila Deidi, right? But Anila Deidi is the primary purpose, so therefore Anila Deidi goes first, meaning Anila Deidi, which is caused through Deidi Li, but the primary Aveda and the main thing is not the Deidi Li. The primary thing is that the Jews should have Avodah to become closer to Hashem.
The goof is more precious than the Shem.
Correct. The Avodah of the goof. Shakavona begilu Yud Midas Rachmi. Explained before that the purpose of the Gilu of Yud Midas Rachmim is le'er Avodah Sa'adam, to awaken the Aved of the Jew, right? That's the primary goal. Why does Hashem come out into the field? Why does Hashem leave the palace with the royal garments, with the crown and everything? And he leaves the palace is to stimulate the Jews, because that's the purpose of creation. That the Jew is, do Torah mitzvahs. By days and nasegil ilui b'yud gimel midas rachman. And like he said before, the Yud Gimel Midas Rachman become greater. Because if everything in the creation, meaning all the emanations, okay, B'Shvil Yisrael, right, Rashi says at the beginning of Chumash, Bereishis Bar Elikim, why did Hashem create the world? Because of Bereishis, Beis Reishis, Torah, which is called Reishis, Jews which are called Reishis, the first Rashi in Chumash. The purpose of creation, and the Rebbe Chassidus explained, not only this physical world, the purpose of the entire spiritual and physical universe was for the sake of Jews doing Torah mitzvahs. So therefore, why is there the revelation of Yigil Midas Rachmim to stimulate a Jew to become closer to Hashem? Right? So if the purpose of everything is for the Jew to serve Hashem, then all these revelations of emanations and revelations of Atzilus and higher and Yud Midas Rachman, all that stuff is for the sake of the Jew. That means when the Yud Gimel Midas Rachman stimulate the Jew, so now that fulfills the purpose of why Hashem made Yud Gimel Midas Rachman. That causes an elevation and an accomplishment in the Yud Gimel Midas Rachman. What?
Saying that if there is no Jew, there will be no law.
Correct. Now we're saying the book says that. The Torah, the first pasuk in Chumash. The purpose of
So why are they trying to destroy us?
because evil tries to destroy holiness, because then when holiness overcomes the evil, that's the whole purpose of creation. And the more the evil is, and the more dominating the evil is, the harder it is for the Jew to overcome the evil. So when they overcome the evil, that's the ultimate accomplishment.
But evil is God itself.
Evil what?
It's from God.
Evil is from God for one purpose, for good to be good. So evil is not an end of by itself. Evil is a means to an end. In order to come to good, you need the ability to do evil. And the more evil is, the more good there is. So therefore, that's why in this world, this right before Mashiach, it's so not normally evil. Think about it. The evil in this world never existed before. Why? Because in the last push before the coming of Mashiach, the Avodah of the Jew, and therefore you don't fight this darkness by stopping to do mitzvahs, taking off your mezuzahs and taking off your, like people want to say. It's on the contrary. You have to do more.
But Rabbi, there is only one truth. Why does evil think that their shtutim is truth? Hashem reveals only one truth. There is only one truth. Hashem, Torah, and Israel.
Yeah, that's true. But do you feel it? I don't. Do you feel it?
No, I don't.
Because if you would feel it, I'm not talking to you personally, I'm talking to the Mechitza. Because if you would feel it, you would never sin, not in thought, speech, or action.
No, I'm talking about the evil.
Evil has a mission to accomplish. The Gemara says, Satan upnina l'shem shemayim niskavnu. Penina was the second wife of Elkanah, who was married to Chana, the mother of Shmuel, and Chana didn't have children. After the first day of Rosh Hashanah, right? And Penina had children, and Penina used to torture Chana. I have kids, you don't, that means you're no good. And so Penina was a holy lady. So the Gemara says, Penina, what she was doing to Chana was l'shem shemayim. Because she knew Chana was great, and she davened she's going to be answered. So Penina wanted to get Chana to daven harder, so she, so to speak, did it that Chana should, but she meant l'shem shemayim. The Satan, the Gemara says, which is the Eitzahar and Malach HaMavet, all the synonymous things, the Satan who comes to prosecute the Jews. So the Gemara says like this. First, it's the Eitzahara who has Satan, who are Malach HaMavet. The Gemara says this, right? The Eitzahara is the Satan who is a Malach HaMavet. It's all the same guy. In other words, the Eitzahara first gets you to sin, then the Satan prosecutes you, the same guy. He gets you to sin, then he prosecutes you, and then he kills you. The Malach HaMavet. The same guy. Yeah? And the Gemara says, that guy, it does it l'shem shemayim. And like the Alter Rebbe in Perek of Tanya says at the end of the Perek, the Alter Rebbe says the mashal, the Zaina, of the king that wanted to test the morals of his son, the prince, so he hired a Zaina and everybody understands that this kid shouldn't be sinning, he's the prince. But the Zaina is doing her job very well, but down deep, what does she want? That the kid shouldn't listen to her.
That's what I'm saying.
So the Yetzirah it has a mission to accomplish.
Even though the evil knows that
the evil knows, the Satan knows, the Yetzirah knows, I'm giving a mission from Hashem. And that is to try to convince a person to sin, hoping that he won't. I told you one of my friends in yeshiva, he was a very wild guy, he still is, but he's older than me. But, he's probably my age. Anyway, so he went into Yechidus Bach and he was telling the Rebbe all the stupid things he did. It was like, So the Rebbe told him, how do I know? He told me afterwards. He told everybody what the Rebbe told him. The Rebbe said to him in Yechidus, in Yiddish, he spoke to him, he said, your own Yetzirah is laughing at you. How foolish you are for listening to it. Your own Yetzirah is laughing at you. Why are you listening to me? You're a fool. Don't listen to me. But if the Yetzirah doesn't try hard to convince you to sin, then what's the big deal if you don't sin? The Gemara says, initially the Gemara thought differently, but the Gemara rules, a guy who's commanded to do a mitzvah and does it is greater than a guy who's not commanded to do it and does it. Okay? There's an argument in the Gemara. What is the Gemara talking about? There's an argument in the Gemara if a blind person is chayiv in mitzvahs or not. We know cheresh, shotev, and katan, are not obligated in mitzvahs. So there's an argument in the Gemara: is a blind person obligated in mitzvahs? So Rav Yosef was blind. Rav Yosef, Rav Sheshes of the Gemara, they were blind. So Rav Yosef said, whoever tells me that the halacha is a blind person is potter from mitzvahs, I'm going to make a party. Why? Because look how great I am. I don't have to do it and I do it. So I'm great. Volunteering, right? Then he heard what another Amira said, that Gadol mitzvah v'aisa, one who's commanded to do a mitzvah and does it, is greater than one who's not commanded to do it and does it. Okay? So he says, once he heard that, he said, no, whoever tells me that Allah is a blind person, is chayiv in mitzvahs, I'm going to make a party. Because look how great I'm obligated to, but logically, why should a person who's obligated to do a mitzvah and does it greater than a person who's not obligated to do a mitzvah? If you're not obligated to do a mitzvah, you should be greater. Right? So what's the answer? So Chassidus explains very simple. If you're not obligated to do a mitzvah, you're not obligated to do it, why should the Yetzer Hara waste his time with you? You don't have to do it anyway. You do it, you don't do it, the same thing. I'm not going to waste my energy on getting you not to try to sin. Right? But once you're obligated to do it, now you're obligated to do it. Now the Yetzer Hara says, now I have to make an effort to get you not to do it. You ever know those kids under bar, used to be, now the world is crazy. Years ago, kids under bar mitzvah wanted to fast. And they wanted to do all the things, they wanted to do the adult things, yeah? They wanted to fast, they wanted to do mitzvah. Today not, even the kids don't want to do it. And the adults, the second all of a sudden they become bar mitzvah, I don't feel, I don't want to fast. Where does it come from? It comes from this concept. A kid's not under bar mitzvah, they don't have to do mitzvah, so why should the Yetzer Hara waste his time with you? So the Yetzer Hara has a mission. And by the way, it's interesting, the Yetzer Hara accomplishes its mission very well. We don't. We don't accomplish, the Yetzer Hara accomplishes his mission, regretfully, better than we do. Right? Therefore the Gemara calls him Umen B'mlachta, he's an expert in his work. He's an expert. Yeah, he does good things. Okay, let's finish the Maamar. Ushnei and Yanim Bezed, there's two aspects. So he says, the whole purpose of Yid Gimel Mitzvah Rachmim Elul is to stimulate the person to do Avodah. And he says, number one, it's a greater revelation from above to come down. Because in order to come down lower, you need to have a greater power to come down lower. And also, so in other words, like this, the fact that Yud Gimel Mitzvah Rachmim has to come down, that makes it greater, right? Because it has to come down, so it has to, in order to teach somebody younger, you need to have a greater power of being able to lower the intellectual concept to a lower level. So number one, the fact that Yud Gimel Mitzvah Rachmim is coming into the Sada, that shows it needs a greater power to come down into a place of not Kedusha. Secondly, that after the Avedus of Tshuva, the Yud Gimel Mitzvah Rachmim becomes greater. And that itself two aspects. The elevation, number one, the enjoyment that Hashem has when a Jew does Avodah. Hashem likes when we do things. As the pasuk says, "L'maisa yodecha tichseif." Hashem longs to the Avodah of the Jew, and especially Avodah Satshuva, and therefore Mekabel Sevid Panim Yafas. And then by Deizeh, through this, that Hashem has enjoyment from the fact that the Jew do it during Torah mitzvahs. Mizgala achakach hatainik atzmi shebi Yisrael atzmon then it becomes revealed the essence of the Jew, which is higher than the essence of Torah mitzvahs. Shalamal misharish the Torah mitzvahs, even higher than the level of tshuva, like the Rabbi said that before in the Maamar also. Panim seicha case. Okay, in other words, like this. The Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim, like you said before, awakens the essence of the Jew to come out from the midbar, right? He's completely disassociated, and all of a sudden he wants to come out of the midbar to go to meet the king. Okay? The Rebbe said before, that awakening, Mara Panim Seicha case, which is even greater than Sefer Panim Yafes, right? Sefer Panim Yafes said before, you give him Midas Rachmim. This is even higher. It's awakening the essence of the Jew, which is higher than Torah mitzvahs, including tshuva. In other words, you have Torah mitzvahs, you have tshuva, but tshuva is one of the mitzvahs in the Torah. Then you have the essence of the Jew, which is in greater than the essence of Torah. We see this in many different places. Number one, the Medrash says 7 things before the world, but then the more common Medrash is there are 2 things that created before the world, existed before the world. Torah and Neshamas. Okay? Jewish. Neshamas. Goy have nefesh. There are 2 things higher than the world. It says, Istakol baraisa ubara alma. Hashem looked into Torah and created the world. That's Zohar. The Medrash says the same thing in different language. Torah is the blueprints of the world. How do you build a building? You look in the blueprints, and then you build a building. Right? So obviously the blueprints are there before the building. That means Torah had to be before the world if he looked into Torah to create the world. And then it says in another Medrash, B'minim lech b'nishmetzem shel tzadikim. With who did Hashem simply means? With who did Hashem decide to create a world? With the neshamas of tzadikim. So without Chassidus, I mean, God had a board meeting of neshamas, and he decided, are we creating the world or not? And the neshamas says, yeah, and therefore they created the world. Obviously, it doesn't mean that. It's ridiculous. It means, what was the purpose of creation? Neshamas Yisrael. Okay? Like we learned. So Torah is higher than world, neshamas are higher than world. So now the Medrash continues, which of the 2 are first? Meaning, which of the 2 are greater? So the Medrash says, the fact that Torah says, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, if Torah says, speak to the Jews, that means there's already Jews that Torah is speaking to. But if there's no Jews, how could Torah say, speak to the Jews? There's no Jews yet. Neshamas. So obviously it says, Neshamas are even greater than Torah. Up there. What?
Is there any reference in Talmud or anywhere that Hashem had to have a blueprint before he had created the world, or there is no reference to such? Is there any reference?
When Torah speaks in physical terminology, it's the concept of the physical thing. Just like in the physical world, you need blueprints to build a building. So you need Torah to build the world. So it comes out like this. The neshamas are even greater than Torah. Okay? Therefore, it's very, okay. When Moshe Rabbeinu came down and broke the luchos, right? Why did he break the luchos? Because he had a choice. One of the 2 had to go. The Jews got Torah, now they committed adultery, they worshipped an idol. Right? So Moshe Rabbeinu coming down from the mountain, he's faced with a dilemma. Either break Torah and then God can't say the Jews sin because they didn't get the Torah, or destroy the Jews because they transgressed Torah. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Moshe Rabbeinu on the spot broke the luchos. He said, if one got to go, it's the Torah. That means the neshamas are even greater than Torah. And Hashem said to him, which is, by the way, a clear proof that God is Ashkenazi, because God didn't say Chazak Baruch. God said Yasher Koyach Sheshibarta. Hashem said Yasher Koyach, that you broke the luchos, right? That's the last Rashi in Chumash from the Gemara in Shabbos. Yeah. So God said Yasher Koyach Sheshibarta. Thank you for breaking. What do you mean? Thank you. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know he's going to get a second set. Okay, because if there's a choice, Jew and Goy, a Jew and Torah, Jew comes first. Okay, let's see. Yeshleimat, let's just finish the
Why do
mind.
we say neshamas?
All neshamas.
That's God. Neshama is God.
No, it's an emanation of God.
Rabbeinu, we say Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't say Moshe Rabbeinu, which
They didn't say, no. When Hashem said, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar, God didn't say Moshe, he said Moshe. Look in the Chumash. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe. It doesn't say Moshe, it says Moshe.
that's true, but
His last name was Rabinovich. He's Ashkenazi. Okay, Shlomo Akivin says, Tshuva Adam. By the Gila Daidili, the Gila Yugim Serachmim, therefore, the Pa'ul of Anila Daidili is Gama Gili Daidili, even the Daidili becomes elevated through the Anila Daidi. Yiratzin Shaydei Masena Vedosena Befrate de Aveda Chedesh Elul. We should niske bekari, we should merit soon to the Gula Asida, which would be the real Amita So'inyan, the real level of Hashem showing us Ponim Sheikh HaKais. Like it says in many places, being a knigia, the circus that Hashem is going to make with the tzaddikim lost, with the Levyasin and Sharabar, whatever. Sheyeru begilui. Then when Mashiach comes, it's going to be openly visible that all the melchama of Teva and Ab and Elam Hazeh, what was the whole purpose of this fight of Golus, between good and bad, was only God's entertainment. God's entertainment was a Jew should have a fight between good and bad and do good. Okay.
Yeshua,